Hello and welcome. You're watching To The Point. The BJP's sweeping victory in the recent Maharashtra Municipal elections and its significant performance in Odisha raise a critical question. Could it be the case that demonetization has not damaged the BJP's popularity? And will the outcome in UP, Goa, Punjab and Uttarakhand confirm that point? Or is that a hasty and premature conclusion? That's the subject we shall discuss tonight. My guests are senior BJP leader Sudhanshu Mittal, who will be joining us shortly, BJD Lok Sabha MP Jay Panda, senior Congress leader Milan Deora, the well-known columnist and commentator Ashok Malik, and Shiv Sena Lok Sabha MP Arvind Sawant. Mr. Sawant, let's start with Maharashtra. Samna called demonetization an atom bomb. It said, and I'm quoting, Prime Minister Modi has reduced the Indian economy to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All are dead. It added demonetization has caused chaos among the masses. For his part, Uddhav Thackeray, your leader, accused the Prime Minister of betraying the confidence of the people, and he added it was now time for BJP Bandi as well. But now that the BJP has won 8 out of 10 municipal elections and almost as many seats as you did in Bombay, would you accept that demonetization has not diminished the BJP's popularity? In fact, you could even possibly argue that it's enhanced it.
But the fact remains, the number by which the BJP has won the elections of late, I mean almost all elections, maybe in Mumbai, the municipal corporation, or in district Jilla Parishad, what they have done in Odisha, what they are going to do in Uttarakhand. But the public memory is very short. That's the worst part of it, that they have suffered a lot. And what the Nobel laureate Amartya Sen has said, what the former Prime Minister, Mr. Manmohan Singh, who was then the Governor of Reserve Bank, Finance Minister, then Prime Minister, who too has commented on this. But it seems that the government has not given cognizance to all these statements and went ahead with their decision. But the fact remains that the demonetization has not delivered anything good to the country. Let us be very clear on the subject. I would like to know how much money has been deposited.
This is not about demonetization, which is why I'm stopping you. I'm not asking you whether demonetization is good or bad. I'm asking you a different question. I'm saying to you that the results in Maharashtra overwhelmingly prove that demonetization has not diminished the BJP's popularity. It might even arguably added to it. And the results prove that, don't they?
We should accept it wholeheartedly. We accept it wholeheartedly, sir. That's what I said. It's a short memory. People have it. Maybe that we were not able to reach to the public to say that how it is going to harm the country, harm them also.
Okay.
But still, the fact remains that they have won. And therefore we should accept it.
Thank you for that concession. Thank you for that concession and acceptance. I note that you're putting the blame on the people for their short memory. Had they better memories, the BJP you're suggesting would have suffered. Jay Panda, let me put, in a sense, the very same question to you. Your colleague, Pinaki Mishra, has frequently claimed on this very program that demonetization devastated rural Odisha. In fact, Pinaki Mishra revealed that your chief minister wrote frantic letters to Delhi asking for special assistance. But in the recent Panchayat polls, the BJP tally increased by a whopping, and wait for it, 850%, whilst your party's tally fell by a fairly sizable 30%. So once again, will you accept demonetization has not damaged Mr. Modi or the BJP's standing, and possibly it might even have added luster to it?
Karan, I think you are forgetting. I have repeatedly, immediately after November 8th onwards, and many times pointed out that demonetization has been wildly popular at the ground level. Certainly in Odisha, in my constituency, where I spend nearly 2 weeks every month. Now we can have a separate conversation about the economic effects of demonetization. I think it has both long-term benefits as well as short-term difficulties and pain. But as far as the political benefits, there is no question of my accepting it, because I have been saying it from the beginning for the last 3 months that it is extremely wildly popular. And I've said this on your show, I've said it online on social media, and I've been attacked for it. I've been trolled by many opinion makers in Delhi because I was speaking something which was outside of the conceivable knowledge of Lutyens' Delhi. Now, the reality is, if you look around the rest of the country, there seems to be some indication that BJP has done well in elections after demonetization, but I can only speak knowledgeably about Odisha, and certainly this is one of the important factors. And in our party, in BJD, we need to do introspection. We need to do soul searching, because this is not the only factor. There are other factors at play, and I'm sure even in Uttar Pradesh and Punjab and other places, there'll be other factors at play. But certainly demonetization was an asset for them politically. It was not a negative. And
I'm delighted, Jay Panda, that you agree with the line of argument I'm putting to you. I accept your point that you have been making this point for weeks, if not months. But I was going by the fact that your colleague, Lok Sabha MP Pinaki Mishra, who's frequently been our shows, has actually been talking about how rural Odisha has been devastated, how your chief minister, he revealed, had to write special letters to Mr. Modi for special attention. Clearly, Mr. Modi hasn't suffered, regardless of whatever devastation Pinaki Mishra claims happened in rural Odisha. Let me bring you in, Milan Deora. Rahul Gandhi, your party vice president, has gone on and on about the damage demonetization has done to the economy and to the poor in particular. Now, this should have been your moment to gain at the BJP's expense. Instead, look at the results. You shrank in Maharashtra, both at the municipal council as well as the Zilla Parishad level, and you've come, forgive me, a miserable third in Odisha. Clearly, your criticism of demonetization hasn't affected Mr. Modi or his party, but arguably, that criticism may actually have damaged your own party's prospects.
Well, firstly, let me somewhat agree with my friend Jay. I wouldn't say that demonetization has been widely popular, but I would say that demonetization politically, once again, was perceived to be a bold move. Although economically it could be argued that it was a foolish move, but politically it was perceived to be a bold move. And in that sense, politically it may have given BJP some gains, if not nationally, perhaps in some states and in some pockets in different states. As far as Maharashtra is concerned, and if you bring it down to Mumbai, I think Mumbai was fought on completely different issues. I don't even think Shiv Sena or the Congress party were attacking BJP or one another on the issue of demonetization or national issues. The parties were taking local issues to the public, to the voters of Mumbai. I think where Congress clearly failed and where we were unable to lure voters who wanted change towards us was to explain to them that BJP and Shiv Sena were cleverly trying to camouflage the anti-incumbency that they've been responsible together for the last 20 years in the municipal corporation. And they blamed each other as if to suggest that the other party was not in power for the last 20 years. And we were unable to tell the voters that they should call Shiv Sena and BJP's bluff. If they want to change in Mumbai, if they want to change from the state of roads, potholes, schools, civic amenities.
I've heard what you said. I heard what you said about demonetization. Yes. It seems to me you do not agree with Dr. Manmohan Singh's famous description of it as organized loot and legalized plunder. And clearly, the voters of Maharashtra haven't bought that description, because no one votes for a party they believe is guilty of loot and plunder.
No, again, Karan, it's not that I don't agree. I agree completely with Dr. Manmohan Singh, who said that there's going to be a massive negative impact on the country's economy. I'm not denying that. I live in Mumbai city. I meet India Incorporated every single day. I have a sense of what they're saying, and every industrialist, every investor is concerned about demonetization's effects. But like Jay said before me, that's a separate debate in terms of what the economic impact is going to be. The economic impact clearly hasn't been felt as yet.
That's the point I'm making, Mr. Deora. You may meet with corporate India, but the people of Maharashtra haven't bought Dr. Manmohan Singh's line that this is organized loot and legalized plunder. If they'd bought it, they wouldn't have voted for the BJP. No one votes for organized loot and legalized plunder, and that's the point I'm making.
Well, again, Mr. Thapar, the elections at a local level, especially in Mumbai and in Maharashtra, were not fought on demonetization alone. Demonetization was an issue, but if you ask me, it was a small issue. In Mumbai city, for instance, demonetization was not really an issue. The issues were more about the state of civic apathy in our city, urban degeneration.
Okay.
What kind of urban renewal programs do we need in Mumbai city? Those were the discussions. Now, when you come to the politics of demonetization, as I said earlier, I do agree somewhat with Jay Panda that it was presented as a bold move. The economic impact and the political impact also will be felt in a few months.
Okay.
If industry shuts shop,
let me stop you there. I want to bring the others in. I accept you have a case. I accept you have a case when you say local elections are fought on local issues, not demonetization. And I'll take it up in a moment's time with Sudhanshu Mittal. But first, I want to put to Ashok Malik that actually, Ashok, what we've seen in Maharashtra and Odisha was earlier witnessed first in the Gujarat local bodies and Lok Sabha polls in Madhya Pradesh and Assam, which were held in November, then in the Chandigarh civic poll in December, then in the Maharashtra council elections in January, and finally in the legislative council polls in Uttar Pradesh in February. Doesn't this mean that voters have been tested in several states, in several different elections, and each time demonetization has not damaged the BJP's performance?
Karan, there are two, three things here. One, each of these elections was different, had separate local issues. As Jay Panda and Milind Deora have very correctly said, demonetization was not the major issue in the Maharashtra municipal elections. These elections were not a referendum on demonetization. However, if demonetization had been hugely unpopular, then certainly the BJP would have suffered. The fact that it did not suffer establishes that people retained their faith in Mr. Modi and his government and believe that even if there is short-term pain, and there was short-term pain after November 8th, the long-term approach of Mr. Modi to fighting corruption, fighting black money, fighting tax evasion, of which demonetization, he says, was the first step, was correct, and they seem to retain their faith in that. So in that sense, Mr. Modi's credibility remains fairly high. The reasons for winning these elections in Maharashtra were different. They had more to do with local mobilization, with the fact that the BJP is a very astute and well-oiled election machine. It approaches each election with a certain dexterity, which some of its rival parties, including the Congress, especially the Congress, simply don't. So it's not that the BJP doesn't make mistakes while fighting elections, it does. But it seldom repeats mistakes, it learns from its mistakes. In the case of the Congress in particular, it seems to be making the same mistake over and over again.
I hear the intelligent note of caution, Sudhanshu Mittal, that Ashok Malik has just put into our discussion, and in a sense he's echoed what Milind Deora was saying earlier about local elections being fought on local issues and not on demonetization. But I'm going to go one step further in my line of argument with you. I'm going to put to you this: not only has demonetization not damaged the BJP's popularity, as these election results have shown, I put it to you that it's arguably the case that demonetization in some places might actually have enhanced the BJP's standing, and perhaps Mr. Modi's in particular. Would you buy that argument, or would you say I'm going one step too far now?
No, Karanji, we have debated this issue on your very program, and I have always held that across the country, people have welcomed this. You see, it's a class manifestation. The class of people who believe in the law of land, who follow the law of land, versus people who violate the law of land with impunity. So there was a problem in a class of people who were on the wrong side of law. But all those who believed that law must be upheld have welcomed it, looking at this as a monumental step by this government, and it was a monumental success. Surveys after surveys all across the country and all across all medias indicated that people have overwhelmingly welcomed this step. Well, there are few like Mr. Rahul Gandhi who refuse to believe it. You mentioned a member of the BJD, and you mentioned the Chief Minister of Odisha, and all them. Well, they had reasons which were largely political and not on merits of what was done, that they chose to ignore what the aspirations of people were
Okay.
or how people felt about demonetization. This has clearly demonstrated. Now
Okay.
saying there were local elections,
Now,
yes, there were local
let's
elections
keep our
and
answers
local
short,
issues.
Mr. Mittal.
But look at what the Congress or all other major political
Let's
parties
keep the
did.
answer short, Mr. Mittal.
Okay.
Let's try and keep our focus on demonetization and the central question, did it damage, did it help the BJP? Arvind Sawant, let's try and answer the question that in a sense lies under our discussion. Why has demonetization, which clearly caused pain and suffering, no one can deny that, which clearly will have an impact on the economy and in particular on the unorganized sector and on the daily casual wage labor, and again no one can deny that, why then has demonetization got the support of people in such overwhelming numbers? Your answer in the beginning was that people have a short memory. But is that really the explanation for this seeming paradox, or do you think there could be something deeper at play here?
I'll tell you, there are two parts. Yes, you are absolutely, there are two parts in it. One is that a common man feels a government is taking a step against the black money. And they accepted it. They felt they enjoyed it. They feel now the people all those people who are having black money will be penalized. You show me a single person, a rich person standing in a queue when the demonetization was implemented. And secondly, no one has given any, I mean to the point, if you say like this, no one has given any recognition to the people who died in the queue. 100 people died, not a single media or even a press. They have given a simple news, but nobody made an issue out of it. That 100 people died in a queue just to draw their own money.
So the media
Was
is
it
guilty
right?
for not
And
having
second,
played
the
that
last
up.
part which you have absolutely said it right. Absolutely, one moment, Karanji. What you have said, the last part was most important. In a course of time now, in few months you can see how many small industries are closing now. So how many employment people are going to lose the employment, and the number will go on increasing every day. And the day people will suffer it, they'll realize what is the demonetization. And
Okay.
therefore, what
In other
one
words,
thing is that
you're
realized
saying
vendor,
that the
people
full
will
impact
realize
of
that time.
demonetization
When we
will
do
only
the
be
different part of it.
realized later on. That later on hasn't happened. Therefore, at the moment, the illusion that in fact this is cleaning up corruption is one reason why people continue to support it. Let me
The
put
common
that
man feels
argument.
It's a very good thing.
Okay, let me put
They are
that argument to
penalizing
Jay
people who have their
Panda.
black money.
Jay Panda, I'm going to put that argument with a slight twist to see if you agree with it. There is a theory that even though the poor have suffered, they, the poor, believe that the rich have suffered even more. In other words, Schadenfreude, which is a very powerful human emotion, is a major reason why demonetization has such approval ratings. Do you buy that line of argument?
Yes, let me put it this way. You know, Karan, earlier when you mentioned that Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik has written letters to the Prime Minister about steps needed to alleviate the problems that people are facing, you must also acknowledge that Naveen Patnaik was one of two chief ministers, two non-BJP chief ministers who supported demonetization along with Nitish Kumar. And the reason for that is that, there is a perception that it can lead to good things if other steps are taken beyond demonetization. So, yes, Schadenfreude is part of it because the poor have seen that much as they have suffered, their suffering was actually temporary because the poor are not sitting on hoards of cash. They did have to stand in lines and they did have to wait until cash circulation resumed. It took a few weeks. But they have a belief that many corrupt people, whether it is corrupt politicians, officials, and others, contractors in rural areas, they are sitting on stacks of black money or using that money to buy things like real estate, which makes it difficult for the honest people to compete with them. So there is a belief that the unethical people are suffering more and will suffer longer.
Okay. Milind Deora, there's a second explanation that is doing the rounds that attempts to explain the popularity of demonetization. And it's the belief that many people have that demonetization will end the culture of bribery, which affects the poor most of all. Now, even if that doesn't turn out to be the case, it will take several months before people realize that this hope was just illusory. At the moment, people believe it is true, and therefore they support demonetization. After a while, when they realize they still have to pay bribes, they'll probably change their view pretty dramatically, but that hasn't happened as yet. Do you buy this second theory?
Well, I think demonetization, what is becoming increasingly clear, was that it may have been good politics, but it's clearly bad economics. We as a party as well, since a few people have said in this debate that Rahul Gandhi was against demonetization, when it happened on November 8th night, on November 9th, if you go back and check the records, Congress party welcomed demonetization. We said if this is a move which will end black money, which will put an end to and reduce the cash economy, which will reduce corruption in electoral funding in terms of bribery, we're all for it. But I think what was stated and what the people of India expected on November 8th night and what happened for a month or 2 months after that in terms of the shabby implementation, it's but natural for a political party, whether they're a regional party, a national party, even if parties who are part of the coalition in the NDA, to raise a voice, because it was implemented so poorly.
You're missing the point, surely.
For instance, on November 9th, you suddenly sucked out the existing cash and you brought new currency notes into the system.
I'm actually saying something else, that the reason why people still endorse demonetization and don't hold it against Mr. Modi, despite the bad implementation you're justifiably talking about, is that they believe that this will end the culture of bribery that the poor have to suffer the most. That belief may turn out to be illusory, but at the moment, they still believe that belief will become true. And that's the second reason why demonetization remains a positive for Mr. Modi, because that bubble hasn't burst. When it bursts, it will be over, but it hasn't burst as yet.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm afraid we're going to have to stop. Forgive me, Milan. The Prime Minister is speaking live from Coimbatore. He's probably heard that we're discussing his demonetization. Perhaps he wants to intervene and make a few points himself.
Yanna Udaya Anabban Vanakkam. My loving greetings to all. It is my honor to be here in this august gathering, that too on the auspicious occasion of Mahashivratri. There are many festivals, but this one is prefixed with Maha. Indeed, there are many devas, but only one Mahadeva. There are many mantras, but the mantra which is identified with Lord Shiva is called Mahamrutyunjay mantra. Such is the glory of Lord Shiva. Mahashivratri symbolizes a union of divinity with a purpose of overcoming darkness and injustice. It inspires us to be courageous and fight for good. It marks the shifts of seasons from the cold to the lively spring and brightness. Mahashivratri celebrations go on for the entire night. This symbolizes a spirit of vigilance that we have to protect nature and mold our activities in sync with our ecological surroundings. My home state, Gujarat, is the land of Somnath. the call of the people and the longing for service took me to Kashi, land of Vishwanath. From Somnath to Vishwanath, from Kedarnath to Rameshwaram, and from Kashi to Coimbatore, where we have gathered, Lord Shiva is everywhere. Like crores of Indians across the length and breadth of the nation, I too feel delighted to be a part of celebration of Mahashivratri. And we are merely drops in the ocean. Through centuries, there have lived countless devotees in every age and time.
Welcome back. You're watching To The Point. That was the Prime Minister speaking from Coimbatore. We, however, will continue with our show. We are, as you know, discussing the critical question, looking at the results from Maharashtra, looking at the results from Odisha. Does it seem as if demonetization has not damaged Mr. Modi or the BJP's popularity? And could one go, in fact, one step further and say, possibly, even perhaps argue, that demonetization and the myth around it might even have strengthened Mr. Modi's popularity? Ashok Malik, to wind up this bit of the discussion, because after that I want to look forward and talk about what are the prospects for UP, Punjab, Goa, Uttarakhand. To wind up this part of the discussion, could you argue that the results from Maharashtra, the results from Odisha show that Mr. Modi has a better understanding of the way people think, of what they want and what they value than perhaps many of his critics? And that in November, when most people turned around and said, this is a terrible gamble, it turns out today, in political terms, not economic, but in political terms, it was a careful, astute strategy.
You know, I could answer that question in two ways. One, yes, Mr. Modi did have an astute idea of what people wanted when he went in for demonetization. But it was not an illusion or a myth, to use words that you've used earlier in the program. I think you're being cynical there, and I'm a bit uncharitable, if I may put it that way, because he has followed up demonetization with a number of other steps, cracking down on Benami property, taking the attempt to clean up election funding with the electoral bonds in the budget. He has promised many other steps that will also crack down on black money, on corruption in public life. He has promised a cleaner and more transparent method of recruitment to government jobs, all of which are part of taking people away from the bribe giving culture, which they have fallen victim to all these years. Second, it's quite clear that Mr. Modi and his party have a very good idea of what people want, given the success with which they have gone from election to election. Yes, they have made mistakes and they have lost elections in the past 2 years, but they have approached each election and each set of voters with a specific appeal, whether it is in UP or whether it is in Gujarat or whether it is in Maharashtra and Odisha, and that explains their success.
Okay, let me, Sudhanshu Mittal, put in a sense what you've heard just now from Ashok Malik. You heard it much more forcefully earlier from Milind Deora. I want to put that point to you, and then I want to take a break and change the subject. Local elections in Odisha, local elections in Maharashtra were decided, as Milind Deora very forcefully argued, on the basis of local issues. And because demonetization has absolutely nothing to do with local issues, it would be foolish to argue that the outcome in these two states somehow suggests demonetization has not damaged the BJP's popularity. To make that argument is a bit like comparing apples and oranges and coming to the wrong conclusion. How do you respond to that argument? And by the way, in various forms it's been made by Milind Deora, by Ashok Malik, as well as by Arvind Sawant. And Arvind Sawant, incidentally, is still your ally.
it a
results of the
coincidence that
Uttar
you
Use
Pradesh,
these
huh?
election results
Now
to
see,
conclude that
Karanji,
demonetization
what
was
Nitish
unfair?
Kumar-
I never-
that you win various elections of Maharashtra? Can I finish? Can I finish? Is it a coincidence that you won Chandigarh? Is it a coincidence that now you win Odisha, where you were practically non-existent? You win now Maharashtra local body elections? No, it's not a coincidence. It is a credibility of the Prime Minister and his sincerity towards the nation. You know, you're not looking at the perspective. When he took the decision of demonetization, he never looked at its politics. You may all think it was a wise political decision. No. He looked at the need of the country. His decisions are prompted by his desire to serve this country, irrespective of the consequences, irrespective of what the cost would be political. So there is no gamble. There is single-mindedness about cleaning the system, making this country self-reliant, making this country strong and a law-abiding country. And it is this intent which has been widely appreciated by people. And I said it is a class of people. A class of people who believe in the law of land. They may be underprivileged. They may be middle class. They may be salaried. They may not be the money bags of this country, but they are the people of this country. And that is why Prime Minister is drawing so much of support.
Okay, we're going to take a
Samant
break at
may
that
not
point.
like
it's a very cogent argument you made.
him,
After the
look
break,
what
I'm going to
people
come
have
back
said.
and ask, does the trend that we've witnessed, does the conclusion that I'm drawing, but I should point out, which my panelists are quarreling with, but does the conclusion I'm drawing that demonetization has not damaged BJP's popularity and may arguably even have enhanced it, suggest something about the outcome that we could expect from Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Goa and Punjab? And if that is going to be another sweep for Mr. Modi, what would it mean? We'll be back in a moment's time for part. Has demonetization damaged Mr. Modi, or is it the case that Maharashtra and Odisha show that not only has it not damaged Mr. Modi and the BJP, it might arguably even have added to their luster? Milind Deora, I suppose for many people, the final answer to the question whether demonetization has damaged the BJP's popularity will probably come with the outcome in UP. Now, after the results that you've seen in Maharashtra and Odisha, are you worried that your party's hope in UP, which for some was soaring after your alliance with Akhilesh, could end up being dashed on March the 11th?
Now, firstly, let me say that if on March 11th, if BJP were to win elections in all 5 states, and then if they were to say this was a referendum on demonetization, it would be hard not to agree with them. But given what's been happening in these states, and especially UP, I'm pretty confident that on March 11th, BJP is going to be in for a big shock. People I talk to in BJP itself, senior leaders in fact, are not as confident about Goa as they were before the elections happened, Karan. So I really don't think that it's fair to say that the elections in each of these states or in many of these municipalities in different states was one big referendum question on demonetization. I think demonetization may be a bigger issue in Uttar Pradesh than it was, for example, in the Mumbai municipal elections. But coming back to the earlier point that someone had made, that my friend Sudhanshu Mittal had made before the advertising break, you know, if you have to look at the political versus economic benefits of demonetization, I think it's important to look back at 2008 when UPA was in power and Manmohan Singh stuck his neck out and implemented what was then the civil nuclear agreement. And at that time, if you remember, we almost endangered our government. We were supported by 61 MPs from left parties and they threatened to walk out of the government. But today, almost a decade later, the country and this government, the incumbent government in power, agrees that the nuclear agreement was for the good of India.
But Milind Deora, that could be the outcome for demonetization as well.
3 months after
that could be the same outcome for demonetization as well.
Unfortunately,
Mr. Modi may have shown similar sagacity. We just don't know.
Saying that demonetization was an economic disaster.
Well, we don't know as yet. Forgive me, we don't know as yet.
Mumbai on its own,
we don't know as yet. I'm stopping you there. We just don't know. It may be an economic disaster, but you can't say for sure. Arvind Savant, I'm going to stop you there. Forgive me, Milind. I want to go back to the key question, which is, does demonetization suggest, after you look at the results in Maharashtra and you look at the results in Odisha, that maybe Mr. Modi could win equally spectacularly in the other forthcoming elections? Arvind Savant, I bear in mind the caution that Milind has brought into our discussion, but the question I'll wait your turn, please, Mr. Mittal, I'll come to you. Arvind Sawant, the question you have to ask yourself as a Shiv Sena MP is that if Mr. Modi does win UP, Goa and Uttarakhand, which may well happen, he will be an even more powerful Prime Minister and the BJP an even more dominant party. How will the Shiv Sena respond to that? As it is, you bristle when he acts and behaves. If he becomes more powerful, will you be able to take it?
Well, we will be always able to take everybody, nothing to worry about that. The fact remains that let us wait for the results of the Uttar Pradesh and the other assembly elections. And then, as Milind has rightly said, it will be hard to say no that it is demonetization has whether have any impact on it. If you consider that what Nitish Kumar has said when the decision was taken, he has congratulated. And now what Nitish Kumar is saying about the demonetization, that makes a difference. And therefore, we'll have to wait till the results of all these assembly elections are declared. And as far as the integrity about the decision was concerned, nobody questioned the integrity of Prime Minister. The only part is that the implementation part, and there lies the problem.
Okay.
And there lies a serious problem. It has created a hardship, it has created inconvenience, it has created death to the people, and in future course,
the only problem is that the people who suffered that hardship and death are not voting in those terms. That's the paradox. But you're right to point it out. Jai Panda, the problem that Mr. Modi's possibility of rising yet further and further in stature creates for you is that as he rises and as the BJP rises, the space for regional parties like yours will shrink. Now, Naveen Patnaik has had 4 successful electoral victories, but could he be coming to the end? Could the curtain be falling on his incredible performance? Might the BJD, if these results in Odisha carry on, lose in 2019?
Don't forget that under Naveen Patnaik's leadership, the BJP has not only won 4 successive elections to Odisha, but has gained in each one of them. And the first 2 were in alliance with the BJP, and the last 2 were as by ourselves. Now, since we've been talking about the impact of demonetization,
you know that dreadful saying, things that go up sometimes crash at some point. Are you rising only to crash in 2019? And is the local body Zilla Parishad elections in Odisha the first indication?
Well, we won only 20 out of 21 parliamentary seats in Odisha last time, so there is still scope to rise some more, Karan. But let me point out.
Rajiv Gandhi won over 400 in the Lok Sabha and crashed to a defeat 5 years later. These things do happen.
Let me answer your question. Let me answer your original question. I think with relation to demonetization and other such steps that the Prime Minister has been taking, I don't think any election is only about one issue. So this may have helped him and his party, but there will be many other issues, and there are issues concerning Odisha's interests that perhaps a regional party can better answer for than a national one. And the other issue that you have to keep asking, one of the questions that keeps getting asked about regional parties is what happens in the future, who succeeds, who can take up the mantle. I think the same question needs to be asked about the BJP, because you'll agree that the Prime Minister
stands at the moment the BJP doesn't have the problem you face. Yours is a declining vote share, precipitously falling if you look at the local body elections. Mr. Modi's is a rising vote share, which is why the question is apt for you, not for Mr. Modi. But I see why you'd want to raise it, because it's a good way of deflecting. Let me quickly bring you in, Ashok Malik, and put this to you. Mr. Modi may be growing in strength and size in Maharashtra fairly appreciably, but he has an ally with whom he has a very troubled relationship. Will this outcome in Maharashtra now add to the tensions and troubles in the Shiv Sena BJP relationship? Or do you believe that after this outcome, the Shiv Sena will be a chastened party and therefore the relationship easier?
I don't think the Shiv Sena will be a chastened party. Shiv Sena that quotes Amartya Sen and blames the people and wants to elect a new people certainly doesn't sound chastened. I think this war will continue till the Maharashtra election of 2019. where the Shiv Sena hopes the BJP will lose seats, will not win a majority, and will have to come back to the Shiv Sena's arms. And the BJP hopes it will win a majority on its own and be rid of the Shiv Sena for good. So I'm afraid I expect this tussle in Maharashtra between the Shiv Sena and the BJP to continue till 2019. The Shiv Sena has a microcosm of the Congress problem in that it has a vote share, it has a cadre, it has party workers, but it has a reluctant inheritor at the top.
Okay.
In his own way, Mr. Uddhav Thackeray is the Shiv Sena's Rahul Gandhi problem.
I would imagine Mr. Thackeray would consider that a most uncharitable comparison. I'm not sure whether it brings a smile of some satisfaction to Milind Deora's lips, but I'm sure Mr. Thackeray would not be pleased. Let me leave the last word with you, Sudhanshu Mittal. There is a possibility, although I believe most of my panel are discounting it, that if what we are seeing and have seen in Maharashtra and Odisha continues in UP, you could have a fairly spectacular outcome. Does your party in its inner councils, which you may not share in public, but does your party in your inner councils now believe you're heading towards a spectacular outcome in Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Goa?
My answer to the doomsday seers, we are going to win UP. It is there for us. All your predictions, all your skepticisms shall prove to be wrong. Just two more things. The people have shown the mirror to the Manmohan Singhs and the Rahul Gandhis. And Milanji, when you talked about the nuclear deal, you realize 10 years later also you do not have even one single plant which has come up in this nation. So here is a government which is acting for the people, doing its Rajdharan of doing what is required for this nation, irrespective. All what you did was political
jugglery.
Instead of following the Rajdharan, you had the 2 Gs, you had the 3 Gs, you had all kind of corruption. Here is a government.
Taking us in a direction that was not intended by our program and our subject
which
today.
Is corruption free, and that is the reason why people have faith on the Prime Minister
subject, but virtually off the page as well. That's the prerogative and pleasure of politicians. They have a right to answer my questions as they want, but sadly we've run out of time, so forgive me, I have to stop it there. But it's an intriguing thought that I want to leave with the audience. We've had many different answers, not necessarily a conclusive, definitive one. But the question you need to ask yourself, do the outcomes that we've seen in Maharashtra and Orissa suggest the demonetization has not damaged the BJP's standing and Mr. Modi's standing? Does it possibly even go so far as to suggest that maybe it's enhanced their standing? That's an interesting question. Ponder over it, because it could also have an impact on what comes out as the results on March the 11th. But that's a long way away. Till then, goodbye, good night.